Hello everyone, this is going to be a quick tutorial for brand new, never done before people who have not experienced D&D Beyond. So we'll start with the very first start. So if you end up finding a game, your Dungeon Master will usually send you a small little link code. It'll look something like this here. D&D Beyond.ac campaigns join, and then a serial number of the campaign. Once you place that up in the address bar, it'll take you to something like this screen. So the first thing that'll pop up, it'll say the name of the campaign, who invited you to the name of the campaign again, and then create a character. If you've already had experience with this and you have characters created, you just click on the character that you want and then join with this character, and that will add them to the campaign roster. But because we're doing this video for people who are brand new, we're going to click Create Character. And for my specific campaign, I'm doing everything homebrew except for Rick and Morty content, and all the stuff down below will be based on your individual DM and what they want to do. Give your character a name. Right here you can actually click on a fantasy name generator. It takes you to a completely different website to give you ideas. But right now we're just going to do test player, and you can select a profile picture if you want to, or just hit randomize and it will give you whatever may come. Alright, so clicking next, we're going to select our race. Because I have all the source books and everything unlocked, you can pick through Penguin variant. Okay, I did not see that before. But you could pick through everything, even some homebrew stuff. You'll see the little symbol of the house, which is homebrew, of characters or classes that you can be. So for now, I'm just going to pick something basic as, let's do a half-elf. And then it'll give you the subclasses and the variants. I was going to do a half-elf, just because the character we're going to make is going to be a mage that uses magic, just because it's for simplification purposes. So, as you pick your class, everything that has a blue exclamation point will tell you to open up and select things. So because of this class, the high half elf, sorry, you get a +2 charisma and then +1 on 2 other ability scores and a skill versatility. So pick what you want to be good in, and this usually gives you a +1 on your ability stats, which we'll see later. I'm going to give him intelligence and a wisdom because we're going for a mage. Languages outside of speaking Common, which is something that everyone speaks, and then Elvish because of his class, you inherently speak the language of your race. I keep saying class, I mean race for this system. So they inherently speak their race's language and Common as your first 2 star languages. And then anything extra or additional, you can just pick what you want. Again, always talk to your DM about taking up languages. If he says anything goes, pick whatever you want. It may play in later in the game, it may not. It's just one of those things. Roll the dice I take. He's got a Dwarvish. And because I picked the High Elf variant, High Elf of Moon Elf or Sun Elf descendants can forego skill versatility and instead choose a High Elf's weapon training or cantrip. So cantrip is a spell that you can perform without cost of materials sometimes, and without cost of a skill slot or a spell slot. And you can do these usually at will. So I'm actually, because I'm going with a mage, I'm going to go for cantrip, and it's going to ask what spell do I want. There's a whole list of things. If it says UA, that means homebrew. I think it's user authorized or user something. It's something that someone else has made and has allowed other people to use it. Be careful with these, just because some of them can be built specifically to a campaign that someone is running, and they've just released it publicly because either they misclicked or they just want everyone to have fun with it. But yeah, anything that says UA on it, always talk to your DM about, just because you're focused on balance of the world in general. I'll go with Minor Illusion. And you can click on spell details, and it'll tell you what the minor illusion does, how to activate it, and what's the extent of it. We'll go into that later when we play with the member anyway. Click next once you've selected everything for your race, and this is for your class. There is a multiple things to go through, because each time you click on one, if there's other variants, or subclasses that you can go into, it'll unlock from there. But we wanted to go mage. Let's go straight to warlock. And this will display the basic setup of the warlock on when do you level up of new traits or skills, how your score shifts based on what class you've picked, your score being your ability scores. And it looks like you get a lot with this guy. Otherworldly Patron. Usually you have a pact with an otherworldly god who bestows your ability to do magic. Pact magic, you can show more, read through that, and how it affects your abilities, and what spells you can grant and use, and how it affects. More in-depth stuff if you want to read into it. If you're doing a one-shot, most of the time you're only looking at the level that you would be in that one-shot. So anything, because my one-shot's only be level 2, so anything level 6 and on won't make any sense for me to read up on, but it's good to know for future character development. Depending on your DM, you can multi-class, but for mine right now, I'm just going to do the single one. Again, anything with the exclamation point, expand, and you have some selections to make. Pick a proficiency or a skill. So the skills, so there's the abilities, which is the 6 classic, strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, and those will guide your skills later on what kind of benefits you get from them or detriments. So if you have a low enough ability in, let's say, charisma, you get a -1 modifier onto your skill checks later, and that will be determined through dice roll and calculation. So right now with my guy, he's going to do Arcana, and let's do Intimidation, just because those are the ones I feel would be necessary for the future campaign or one-shot that I'll be engaging in. I think they will be useful. Otherworldly Patron, again, there's the user-generated or the homebrew stuff down at the bottom with the UA, and then there's the rest up here. I'm gonna go with this one. And because I selected this one, you notice different things pop up to unlock additional things down below, depending on what you picked. But I'm going Archfey. That gave me Fey Presence, and that gives me an extra skill on things that I can do later. But once you picked what you wanted, we're gonna be level 2. So once you hit level 2, your XP will change. If you want to roll for HP, you roll 2d8s, and then you add that to your previous HP, and you can click Manage HP and modify it up and down how you need to. But right now I put it on fixed from the home screen, so it's just going to adjust as it needs to. But with unlocking level 2, you may notice something else unlocked down here. So now, because I'm level 2, I get to pick new invocations. What spells do I want? Sure, that sounds interesting. I'm not proficient with playing mage-like characters, so I'm just clicking on randomly to see what would incorporate my existence for the one-shot we're doing. Available at higher levels, you can click on that and it'll just give you a breakdown like before. What's at level 6 and 4? What is it? It's 8, 12, 16, and on, I think. But once you've gone through this whole list, go ahead and click Next for your abilities. You can do Point Buy, which has a give or take value. So you have 27 total points to adjust. 8 is the standard. And then if you pick like 11, you used up that many points, and you can actually balance this out pretty well. But for my current one, I'm using Standard Ray, which means you can only pick from these values and you can only use each one once. Because I'm going a mage, I'm going to start pushing into Intelligence, Wisdom. Strength is probably going to be my weakest. Dexterity, let's do 12, Constitution 8, Charisma 10, Strength 13. Alright, so by picking what I had, you notice that they start disappearing from the list. That's in order to not be able to click it again. But you can actually look down and see what kind of modifiers based on race, like racial bonuses. I have for +1 on intelligence, +1 on wisdom, and a +2 on charisma, as well as a modifier which is based on my initial standard array ability scores. So for charisma, I picked a 10, which gives me a +1. And then for intelligence, I picked a 15, which gives me a +3. And those balance depending on your values. So once I've picked that, I will move on. Backgrounds are basic character backgrounds that define where your character's from and what histories and experiences they've had before they've come and done this adventure with a troop of people that they're meeting with. So something like if you picked a charlatan, it'll give you a brief information with skill proficiencies and tool proficiencies that you can pick from. You can read through those at your leisure. Nothing you pick is in stone until the day of your session 0, where you sit down with the DM to discuss your character, what will fit into that universe, or session 1, if you don't do a session 0, session 1, where this is who your character is and this is who you are going forward. Let's do... He is an acolyte. So, because he studies quite proficiently, he gets a bonus in insight and religion, and he gets 2 additional languages that I can pick from. Before I picked Dwarvish, I think. I'm just gonna get Infernal and Halfling. He just learned a bunch of weird languages because he could, basically. Part of my background of an acolyte, I'm now bestowed the Shelter of the Faithful. You can read through that and what that should determine. You can pick characteristics. This doesn't have anything to do with your character and their abilities and skills at this point. This is more of a personality, ideas, and flaws and bonds, like how you will roleplay this character. You can add these as like a guidepost on how you're supposed to play your character, but it really depends on the game you're joining and the DM that you're talking to about what limitations and how strict they would pull from this. I would know a few of them that, depending on what you claim or what you claim here, they will offer you points of inspiration, which you can use later in the game as a reroll, basically a fail-safe. If you fail a roll, you can re-roll again, using the point of inspiration to give you off better odds of the situation. But I've known a few DMs that will award points of inspiration based on how you've created your character in this area. For one-shots, it's not that big of a deal. Or if you've given a good background description to your dungeon master about your character and where they're from and stuff like that, you can usually forgo this stuff down here. Like, again, it doesn't do a whole lot to your skills and abilities. They're just kind of a flavor to the character. Alignment is being debated right now about what really determines alignment. They're just, again, good markers on where to place your character in the world. Right now, I'm going to go with neutral good, and I'm going to pick a random god. Let's go tier. The faith and pantheons and stuff like that later, you can talk to your DM about. Again, it's what world they're building, what gods they incorporate, what kind of pantheon is being used in that location. It's always good to talk to them about it, and it's good to have that conversation with your DM about what the world is like before you make your character, so you can make a realistic person that exists in that universe, as opposed to all the gods, and it's a medieval setting and all the gods are based on Greek mythology, for you to pick an Egyptian god. It wouldn't make sense unless somehow in the story you are able to write in that you're from a distant land and you've come over to this location to join these adventures for the purpose of the campaign or mission or whatever you're engaged in. Down here is the lifestyle. Excuse me. Down here is the lifestyle. This will basically determine your starting gold. Wretched, you get 0. You've lived on the streets. Squalid, you're pretty, you're surviving, but not exactly on the streets. You get 1 silver point. If you're outright poor, you get 2 silver points. Then if you have a modest lifestyle, 1 gold point, comfortable, wealthy, and then all the way up to aristocrat, where you get 10 gold points at least. And depending on the situation and stuff that you fill out later with your DM, he may grant you more. Were you a rich kid that never experienced outside life, don't know the concept of money, but you have a lot of it, and you just spend it willingly, like no concept, as opposed to, let's say you lived in Squalid, where you have 1 silver point to your name to start with, and you have to make that last until you find money or get paid for a mission or something. Right now, for the sake of it, I'm just going to hit modest. I'll get 1 gold point. Personality characteristics, that's just descriptors. There's nothing in there that, again, changes your abilities or your skills. Same thing with personality characteristics. That was the same as before as the character suggested characteristics. They don't have any massive bearing on. It just refers back to that. Yeah. So I usually skip that. And any notes that you want to add into, same things before. Do you belong to an organization? Do you have people you know? These are all things to, again, discuss with your DM on how important these things are, or if they're not. For the sake of what I'm doing, they're not that important, so I'm going to move on. Alright, now you're next to the equipment. This is the last step before your character is finished. Choose equipment or gold. I'm going to do starting equipment. And based on your character and your proficiencies and your background, it'll offer you what you can start with that would make reasonable sense for your beginning character. Because I'm a warlock, I would rather go with a simple weapon, and they'll drop down all the simple weapons that you are capable of using. That does not mean you're proficient with it, but that you are capable of using it without... Sorry, turn that back. You are proficient in it because it is a simple weapon. So anyone can use it, and when you use that weapon, you can add your bonus attack modifiers. So what do I want? A spear for a warlock? That sounds weird. Yeah, let's do a spear. He can use it as a spear, has a little bit of reach, and I need an arcane focus. And it looks like a staff. That's basically what it is. So component pouch, these are specific to magic users, specific to the warlock actually, that all his magic goes through his focus or component pouch, depending on what we pick. I'm just going to do a rod. Actually, if I'm going to do rod as my weapon, I'm going to switch up and do a light crossbow as my secondary. These are just basic packs of things. So if you do a Dungeoneer pack, this is what it includes. If you do a Scholar pack, that's what it includes. For a Warlock, I'm going to do Dungeoneering pack just because I want that hemp rope and some water skins and rations. That's because of the adventure I'm about ready to go on to. Leather armor, any simple weapon, and 2 daggers. So I'm automatically going to start with leather armor and 2 daggers, and then a choice of a simple weapon down here. So I could have picked any simple weapon up here and another simple weapon down here if I had a throwing weapon like darts or daggers. I think hand axes are also throwing, and javelins. It's something additional to have on top of my crossbow for ranged attacks. And if you have two-handed fighting, this is a good area to pick up your automatic 2 weapons to start with. Let's go with... I have a rod. I have a crossbow. Let's do some hand axes. Alright. Because I chose Acolyte, I get a holy symbol, which I can choose from any of these. I'm going to do an amulet. A prayer book or a prayer wheel. And then the incense, vestments, common clothes, and a pouch containing 15 gold pieces. And that is specific to the Acolyte that I've chosen. Your money, starting clothes and stuff can change based on the background that you've chosen. On top of the squalid silver point that I've chosen, or I think it was moderate. Yeah, the moderate 1 gold point that piece that I've chosen. So I should be starting with 16 when I look at my character. I'm not really entirely sure what a prayer wheel is. I know what a prayer book is, but sure. Down here, when you start getting items and equipment, you'll start filling this out, but as for now, just for basic equipment and starting, I'm just going to pick the starting equipment and nothing else. If your DM wants to start you off like in a one-shot to level 10, he'll tell you, hey, move your character up to level 10, pick out your skills, and also you get a magic item based off of whatever reason that he wants to bestow. And then you can add that through this process. So down here you can click add items. And then if he gave you, let's say, a magic ring, and then whatever ring he gave you, you click add, and it adds it to your equipment. Actually, did this go through? Oh, I forgot to add it. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, I forgot to add starting equipment down here to actually add it to my inventory. So I did crossbow, arcane, I did a rod, dungeon pack, I did hand axes, amulets, prayer wheel. Okay, now add starting equipment. Alright, so if you look at your inventory now, that's all there. And you can equip it here, but I would just wait to your character sheet at that point. So I've picked my race, my class, sorted my abilities, went through my descriptions, my background, and sorted my equipment. So I'm going to hit next. And then you can actually export to a PDF to look at your character sheet, or just view it from the website here. I'm going to go ahead and view, and there's my character sheet all displayed for me. In the event that you take a short rest, if you say, let's see, there's some abilities that require a short rest to rejuvenate. So you've used the skill, and now you're tired, you can't use it anymore until you take a short rest. Once you take a short rest, which is about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the DM's preferences, you replenish that ability. A long rest is usually about 8 hours, unless you have an ability that says you can meditate for 4 hours and receive all the benefits of an 8-hour rest. That is a skill that you can take, but it's the same process where you take a long rest. So I will say I've used this spell twice, which means I can't use any more spells for that day. Take a long rest and read through. It says at least 8 hours time during the character sleeps for at least 6 and performs daily light activities, eating, drinking, talking, bathing, whatever you need. I'm gonna turn that off for now. That's something else for hit dice to recover 8 HP at a later time. But you can click take long rest, confirm it, and then it replenishes all my magic slots. So that's something that it automatically does for you in D&D Beyond. From here, you can just go through your actions. So if you're in battle, I don't have anything equipped, so let's do leather armor. That raises my AC. Not by much, but it's enough. Being a warlock, I need that AC as high as I can. I have the rod, that's my focus. And the rod is not a weapon. I did not realize it. So I'll do the hand axe. And I'll have the crossbow on standby. Okay. So looking at my equipment, you see the 15 gold. It says 10. Oh, it's 10 silver points. What? Yeah, I guess that was calculated there. Okay, we'll come back to that. But actions, these are the total actions I can perform while in battle. So I can shoot my crossbow, or I can melee attack with my hand axe. For D&D Beyond, if you have the function on, you can click on the +3. That is a +3 modifier to rolling a d20. So you roll a d20, you add 3 to that roll value, which this does automatically in D&D Beyond. So I rolled a 12, added a +3. My total count to hit something is to beat their armor class of at least 15. Depending on your DM, I think most standard rules are if you tie as the attacker, it succeeds. Since I succeeded, let's say I was attacking a goblin whose AC is about 11, I made a successful hit, and then I will roll for the damage, which you click here. So that's +4, or that's 4 + 1, based on my modifiers, of slashing damage to my target. So that is a 1d6, which I rolled. I got a 4, then the +1 because of a modifier that I have in my attack. I believe it's my strength modifier. And then same thing with my crossbow is my dex modifier, the +1 is why that +1 exists. So if these were ever to go up, let's actually experiment here. Boop. Let's add, for the sake of the whatever. So I added a +3. Yep, so that's my dex modifier. That gave me a +3 on my ranged attacks. And then my strength would be based on the +1 modifier here. And we can get into modifiers later when we're playing the game, but nothing I'm going to address in character build. So yeah, this is how you built your character. You can look through your attack actions, any other actions. Right there, I talked about earlier the short rest. So once per short rest, as an action, I can cause a creature that's in 10-foot cube from me to make a wisdom saving throw of at least 11, or become charmed or frightened, my choice, as the player, until the end of the next turn. So if I was in battle, I would pick a character that was within 10 feet of me, they would roll the dice, and if they got 11 or above, they would defend, but anything below that, they would be charmed or frightened of me, of my choosing. So if I charmed them, those are different effects versus frightened, well, they'll try to run away. Once I use it, it's there, and I can't use it again until I commit to a short rest. So again, I'll click on short rest, confirm, and it's reset. Perfect. Anything that's an unarmed strike that is not specific to any of the weapons you use, explain what you're doing, what you're hitting, how you're doing it, and it'll be a roll based on the DM. Usually it's a strength roll, but any damage is equal to 1 plus your strength modifier, which was this. So it'd be automatically a 2 without a damage roll if I make a successful attempt. That looks weird. Yeah, so I have a +3 modifier on my unarmed strikes, but I only do 2 damage, which is based on my modifier +1. Bonus actions, I have 2 weapon fighting, which means, if you read through the description, if I have a light melee weapon and I make an attack roll, and I also have a lightweight melee weapon in my other hand, I can follow up with another attack roll. So technically, if I had 2 weapons, or I had the 2 daggers in my hands, I could take an action, which is my initial attack, and my bonus action as my secondary swing of an attack. The rules for bonus actions and what constitute as an attack and an additional attack or a bonus action, again, it's always up to your DM. Talk with them to find out what they want and what they don't want, and what they will allow and not allow. Attack of opportunity, if you're in battle arrangements, and you're with a creature and you just frighten them with the spell we did earlier, we looked at. You frighten them and they're running away from you. In the event that they try to run away from you outside of your 5-foot radius of attack, you have an option of attack of opportunity, which means you can attack them as they're fleeing. It does not count as an action or a bonus action, but it's a reaction to the situation. Sometimes if you're successful in hitting them as they're fleeing, they stop fleeing, or they will take the hit and they will continue fleeing. There is an ability called Disengage, where instead of committing to an action during their turn, and you're within 5 feet of a creature who's aggressive towards you, you can disengage, but you don't get to commit to any other actions during your turn. So you disengage, then you move, your walking speed up to 30, so that would be my speed. And that doesn't elicit an attack opportunity, or an opportunity of attack. But if you do not disengage and you still want to retain an action, you would move your 30 feet or step 2. The creature against you would get their disengage or their opportunity of attack, roll for damage or success depending on how that played out. You move and then you commit to your action. So always take that into consideration if you want to disengage or if you just want to leave the area of the creature outside of their 5-foot range or 10-foot range, depending on what weapon they have. If it's a ranged weapon, there's no attack of opportunity unless he has a melee weapon. Then spells, like I said before, the cantrip. If you click on it, it'll tell you what is needed. So somatic means I have to, if I remember right, I think I have to be able to speak. And then material costs, which is a bit of fleece. So I need to make sure that I have a bit of fleece on my inventory. in order to perform that spell. If you look at the spell, it just says you have to have a bit of fleece. It does not say it's consumed. So if it says it's consumed, that means the fleece is used up and it's gone. But if it just says you have to have it, you can use it multiple times until the fleece catches fire or something unusual happens to it. And then I have Speak with Animals, which is explained there. And so this one just means I have... Okay, so somatic... I have to look it up, but I think somatic means hand movement. Anything that's verbal, you have to speak. Anything that's somatic, you have to have free movement of your arms, so you can't be bound or paralyzed or something like that. And then there's the M for specific ones for material costs, but that just means you have the material present unless it says otherwise that it's consumable, and then you go from there. And I forgot to mention, there's one thing about magic users specifically in your character sheet. In your stuff, if you look at them, you can see that because of Half F variant or an Eldritch Invocations, these are the spells I get automatically. But if you click on Manage Spells and Known Spells and Add Spells, there we go, Add Spells, you actually can select up to 2 cantrips and you know up to 3 other spells on that list. So be sure to do this, because if you go through as is, you won't have the magic spells that you are supposed to have. From here though, you can actually pick, like I said, up here, depending on your class and depending on your race, you can pick a different variety. So like Cleric, you have I think 9 to start with that you know. You can pick through them, but you can only have so many prepared, and that prepared means you can use them on the daily. Known means you can switch between them after a long rest. Cantrips, you can't unlearn a cantrip. These are practiced, memorized, known tricks that you can do. So I'm gonna do a quick Chill Touch. That's 1 cantrip, and that filled up one of my slots. And I'm gonna do Mage Hand, and we can look at those. You can just click on those and see what they do later. But back in Mage Spells, I need 3 known spells, which are down here. So notice once I hit the cap on cantrips, everything else went grayed out, which means that is the max I'm allowed to know. And then for my known spells, I get to pick 3 level 1 spells. Fairy Fire, Hellish Rebuke, and Armor of Hadar. And then once again, everything else goes gray. When you start leveling up later, you get to learn more and select new spells that be based on your level. So when you cast it, you click on Cast, it fills up one of your slots, and then you can roll. So like Arms of Hadar, that is, I believe, a saving throw to my target. Each creature in that area must make a saving throw for strength. So they will have to roll at least an 11 to defend. Anything less than that, you do an attack. So you click on the D220, and that is my damage roll. That is necrotic damage if you highlight it. I can click Equip and Unequip here. If you have a magic item that requires attunement, it will list anything that requires attuning here. You click on it and it flicks it over. You can only attune to 3 items at a time. And in-game attunements, usually if you sit down and focus and study the magic artifact or item, wherever it may be, for a period to up to an hour or so, or some DMs like to say during a long rest, that's up to them. But you try to understand the nature of the thing. Let's say it's the Flame Tongue Sword. So the Flame Tongue Sword, once attuned, you are able to set it ablaze to cause extra fire damage when you hit a target. But to activate it, you have to say a specific spell word to that as a bonus action, I think. Depending on the weapon. It'll say action, bonus action, or reaction, or command, or something like that. But you say the magic word. For my campaigns, usually I use the member to decide what that word is. So if they want to say flame on, and that activates the sword, it's flame on. Otherwise, the DM may tell you what the activation word is if it was owned by a previous person that you stole it from or killed someone and took it from them. Something like that. Then features and traits, that's just a breakdown of what you can do. So like I have Fey Presence, which I can use. And then descriptions. This is my alignment, any personality descriptions, physical descriptions I've chosen, and then any of those flaws, ideals, personality traits that you selected before. Background of my acolyte is listed here. Characteristics I didn't choose, and appearance I didn't choose. Here is any notes. This was from before, and then any extras if you want to add anything in here just for the sake of it. If you notice down here, other possessions, I have that prayer wheel and stick of incense, which doesn't actually show up here in my inventory, but it's extra things I'm carrying that for the sake of, like, if I do a ritual that requires incense, I can freely remove one and save it, and that will reflect on my character sheet. So throughout the game, if you do a basic ability check, you can actually click on these sections up here. So something gruesome happened, and I witnessed it, and there's blood, guts, and I'm not sitting well with it. I'll roll for a Constitution check. Oh, that's not good. 1 with a -1. Okay, so any 1 is an automatic fail. Any 20 is an automatic success. And that 20 also means if in combat additional things happen. So if you're attacking something, you got a natural 20. Damage is usually doubled depending on the DM. It's do you roll 2 d20s or do you roll 1 d20 and double that value, and that is your damage. In my situation, I rolled for a Constitution. I got a 1. That's an automatic fail. On top of the -1 modifier, that means I got a 0. So seeing this situation of someone got eviscerated, there's blood, guts, and gore everywhere, and I'm just not handling it. Either I start getting nauseous, I become unfocused, or I start vomiting or something like that. Something detrimental usually happens when you roll a natural 1. And that's great that I rolled it at the end of the situation. So, and if you're doing an ability check, let's say we were talking about Arcana earlier, that's my strongest trait. So I was studying this magical item to attune to it, so I'll roll this. That's always a d20. Oh, plus my modifier. So I got a 25. So again, 20 is an automatic success if it's a natural 20, not a modified 20. So modified 20 means if I rolled a 15 and my modifier plus 5 gave me a 20, something else may happen, or if I got a natural 20, which is a 20 straight out, other things happen where I may learn more than I intended about my magical item, like its origin, its history, its make, what is who was the blacksmith, something like that, something flavorful for the sake of just being charming and building character to the item or the environment or the situation. In battle, you can actually click damage or heal, so if I were hit by something and I took 4 damage, and that will adjust automatically. If I reach 0, I go unconscious, and that goes into death saving throws. And I'm not going to explain that now, this is just mostly character creation and what stuff does, but once you're in death saving throws, different situations happen, but you are unconscious during that time. So if a cleric walked up to me and healed me for 3, I would type in 3, click heal, and I'm back up to 10. For DMs, there's the inspiration point, which I talked about earlier, where you can use a point of inspiration to re-roll a roll that you didn't think was good, either an attack roll, saving throw, or ability check. Those are all things that can save you in the event that you rolled a 1, like I did before in my Constitution check. I could use the point of inspiration, re-roll, and then hopefully do better. Let's see, then your proficiency bonus. If I'm proficiency in intelligence, that is automatic. So right now my intelligence for Arcana is +3 plus my proficiency, which gives me my 5. This is a little bit of math that's already added in here. So for like insight, that's wisdom, which is my +2 plus my proficiency, which gives me the +4. And then intimidation, I think, is charisma. Yeah, it says right there, charisma. This is all calculated out for you. I get +1 to initiatives because that's my +1 dexterity modifier. So if you roll for initiative in battle, it'll automatically roll for you. So the 5 + 1, I'm at 6. It's not the best. Just hope everyone else rolls under me. Over here you have defenses and conditions. You click on that. If you're any of these conditions, restrained, like before I talked about how I had to have somatic control in order to cause or to create my spell or cast my spell. If I was restrained, I didn't have access to my arms or movement, I could not cast that spell. And it explains what happens here. Disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. Or blinded, can't see, charmed, deafen, all other stuff. Over here are defenses. These are based on magical items that you may have gotten or some ritual or something supernatural that happened in the world, and you can customize what you have resistant, immunity, or vulnerability to. So let's say I have a resistance to acid, which means if ever I was done acid attacks, I'm resistant to that. So resistant just means I receive half damage, as opposed to immune to acid, I take no damage. It just does not phase me. And then there is vulnerability, which means if I was vulnerable to acid, I take double damage. Yeah, it's not good, but these are beneficial depending on the items you receive, rituals that you performed, or anything else that may go on. And then down here, if you just want to get rid of them, you remove them. Like I said, resistance to acid. You can explain the source of the thing, if it was a homebrew or a ritual. So let's say we did a gnome ritual, and that will just list it up here. That says this is what was done to remind you how I got it. And so if you want to see in the campaign to see who else is in there, you can click on this button and you can see all the other characters that are in your campaign, so you can look at their character sheets as well. Or you can hit this builder. So if you're able to level up, you click on that, it would take you back to your character sheet, and then you would change the level and you would go through the same process of selecting new abilities, modifiers, descriptions, anything that is granted with that level up. Alright, so that is the basics of a very long 40-minute video of just explaining the character sheet from creation. This is for straight out people who have never done this before in D&D Beyond. You can actually see your proficiencies down here, all my languages, tool proficiencies, what kind of weapons I can do, and my limitations on armor. Anytime you click on anything, it does pull up this help menu of what you can and can't do. And these are also your passives. Passive abilities, you can read through what you're allowed to do. Like I have dark vision, which means I can see up to 60 feet in the dark. Yeah, right there. And then blind sight. A monster with blind sight can perceive its surroundings without relying on sight within a specific radius. Oh, I don't think I have that. But I think this is just saying, for example, if you have these things, because you can manage those as if you're granted these things later. But yeah, that's the basics of the character sheet from D&D Beyond. Thank you for watching.